Hi, welcome. You're watching at CaddyInfo.com, the first Cadillac chat of 2016. And I have with me tonight Cadillac Jim from the Caddy Info forums.
Good evening.
Hey there, Jim. And we may have Air Mike join us. We may have a number of other people who are constantly on our invite list join us. If you want to be on and talk about Cadillacs with us, what we do is we do this on Thursday nights at this time. And as we're doing it live now, it's 7:30 p.m. Central Time, which is 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time or 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. And I don't know what time it is in Australia, but if you let me know that you need me to figure that out for you, then I will Google it. So what happens is we're on Hangouts, and we just chat about Cadillacs and Cadillac related and automotive related topics. And so it's easy to be on. You need some form of camera or camera phone. You need some way to hear or type or read, and you need to want to be on. And then we will figure out the reason I mention we do have standing invites, but the way Google Hangouts works is I have to send you an invite in order for you to join the conversation. Otherwise, you just watch the conversation on YouTube or on Google Plus. And so, but if you go to the Caddy Info forums each week, what I do is I actually create a post for the video chat, and I put what I call a jump-in link there. And the jump-in link will let you just jump to the chat without an invitation, is what the jump-in link does. There's probably a better, more technical explanation of it than that, but that's the way I think of it. And so we're going to be talking Cadillac. Cadillac had just released their December sales, and so their sales for the year. You'll be able to find this article if you want to refer to it on CaddyInfo.com. That when you go to CaddyInfo.com, it takes you right to the blog, and then you can choose to click on the forum and go to the Rich forum. But the CaddyInfo blog is where the sales numbers are. So Cadillac's final sales for the year, 278,000 Cadillacs went to happy homes around the world. They ended up selling 1,000 ELRs, so didn't quite hold up to 100 a month. 42,000 Escalades, 100,000 SRXs. So 1/3 of Cadillacs were SRXs, about 20% were XTSs. The Escalade was about 15%. The ATS shined through at 20%, and the CTS was about 10%. And so 30% SRX, 15 to 20 Escalade, and so on. So the Escalade sales were up. The ATS sales were up. ATS sold a total of over 63,000 cars. And so Cadillac was very happy overall with the way things went. Now the other big news is the CT6 and the XT5 are coming to market in China. Well, they're launching this, Cadillac's launching the CT6 in the first quarter of 2016. And then right after that, so maybe the second quarter or the middle of the second quarter, the XT5. The XT5 is the new replacement for the SRX. The CT6 returns Cadillac to Detroit Hamtramck, which is where the Sevilles used to be made. Cadillac, when they went to the CTS platform, they switched over to Lansing Grand River, but they're still going to be producing those at Lansing Grand River, but the new CT6 is coming from Hamtramck. And what's happening at Lansing is because the Camaros on the same platform, then the Camaros are being made at Lansing Grand River alongside the ATS and CTS. And then the Camaros used to be made at Ontario at the big factory, big fab there, but they're being made at Lansing Grand River. And Lansing just had to go to 3 shifts to keep up with the Camaro demand. So they've been able to put back the several hundred jobs that they lost when the ATS and the CTS didn't exceed forecast. And so good news for Lansing Grand River, and the Camaro on that ATS platform, I think will do very well. You get a lighter, more sporty Camaro, and that should help us with driving dynamics on the ATS as they, whatever changes that they come up with on that platform for the Camaro, then we will get those same benefits on the ATS. So so the best-selling Cadillac for the year, the SRX by far, and then the ATS, and then the XTS still held its own, and came in third. They did list others. There were a few cars that they still had leftovers from previous year models and so on. Of the top countries, Mexico was the slowest seller. Only 1,800 cars in Mexico. The majority of the cars sold in the United States, 175,000 out of 278, and in China, 80,000 out of 278. Very few in the European Union or Russia or Mexico. A few more in the Middle East, 5,000 in the Middle East and 12,000 in Canada.
Well, how come Canada did so well and Mexico did not? What's going on in Mexico?
Well, what's going on there? Yeah, Cadillac offers all-wheel drive, which may be more advantageous in Canada than Mexico.
Well, it depends on what part of Mexico you're in. But I suspect in the parts where you need all-wheel drive, they don't sell a lot of Cadillacs.
Yeah, I would think that you'd get an Escalade instead, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're in those parts of the country where you need an armed guard, I would think the Escalade and a companion Escalade would be the way to go. So you'd have one Escalade ahead of you, your car, and then one Escalade behind you.
Well, actually, it helps to have four. You need, somebody, a lookout, with proper armament on two sides, and then side protection, then rear gunner, tail gunner.
Okay, here's tonight's trivia question, Cadillac Jim. What was the average transaction price of a new Cadillac in 2015?
Worldwide?
In the United States.
In the United States.
In the United States. The average transaction price of a new Cadillac, so that includes options, everything. Mm-hmm. Average transaction price of a new Cadillac in the United States in 2015.
Tax, bank ready.
Across all models.
Points. The bank wants points.
Yeah, if you finance it. Yeah.
I would say 58,000.
Very close, 51,000. 51,000.
Yeah.
So, and that was slightly higher than 2014. And it was the second highest in the industry among full-line luxury brands. So there you go, $51,000. Cadillac continues to be a premium brand. Now, part of the thing is some of the brands are selling down market, right? And so that gets their numbers way up, but they're not really luxury car brands anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look at what Lincoln's been doing. They've basically taken over the Mercury lines, most of the Mercury lines.
Exactly. And basically they're making rebadged, Japanese cars and just putting a Lincoln logo on them, which
I haven't really looked at that, the platforms and where they're buying them. We do that with Chevrolets and other lines further down. And of course, we buy parts, transmissions, fuel injection parts, chassis pieces and so forth worldwide. And they buy worldwide cars buy from Cadillac.
Yes. Now the Cadillac, the ATS, the CTS, the CT6, of course, are all on custom bespoke chassis. Although the ATS does share its chassis with the new generation Camaro, so the Camaro could get the benefit of the lighter ATS chassis than the. I think
is it the whole chassis or just the platform? I mean, do the suspension arms and mounting points and so forth, are those shared at all with the Camaro?
Yeah, I think that it's the same, but what they said is it's the same chassis. I'd have to go look to see is the Camaro have the same wheelbase and so on as the ATS, or is it slightly different? That was one of the things that surprised me on my XTS. One of my Christmas presents, and I don't have it up here, but there's an XLR book. I should have said XLR. There's an XLR book, but my Cadillac Roadster, in the book they point out that although the Roadster was based on the CT6 chassis, they actually extended the wheelbase an inch and a half because the North Star engine, the engine was a little bit longer than a small block Chevy, and so they extended the wheelbase to still have the same luxury interior and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's based on a Corvette chassis, it was a bespoke modified version of the Corvette chassis at the time.
Interesting.
And it's actually like a half-year chassis at that. But yeah, and of course the XLR has been a fun car so far. And tomorrow's Friday, so I'll get to bring the XLR out. If it's good weather.
Mm.
And I'm the XLR is a weekend car, but I allow Friday as part of the weekend. And so that way, when I have to go into work on Friday, I don't mind because I have my Roadster.
Yeah. Well, I don't work regular hours, so holiday is where I can find it, where I'm not working, as it were.
Now, general GM news, a big Air Mike's not going to be able to join us tonight, but Mike, thanks for IMing me to texting me to let me know that I appreciate the communication. The big news for Chevy was the Chevy Bolt, the battery electric vehicle with a 200-mile range, is going to be announced at the CES Electronics Show.
Good.
Now, what they've done with the Bolt, the other piece of news lately in the news was GM invested $500 million in Lyft, which is one of these shared ride services, right? So GM's going to provide custom autonomous cars for Lyft.
Well, they got huge market penetration for Buick through letting Hertz, use GM cars for rental cars. And I got a lot of Buicks when I was, working full time and traveling, and they're great cars. And I never would have known, because I'm not, I hadn't driven a Buick since my uncle's 56 when I was a kid, and it was a great car, but that was the last century,
Yes.
So I had no idea.
So there are two things that are interesting about this new Bolt, and I'm saying B-O-L-T, Bolt.
Yeah.
It'll have a 200-mile range, and it takes 30 minutes to get to 80% charge.
Whoa, that's grocery shopping charge time.
Yes, that's a very good point. Is certainly you could drive it to Walmart, and by the time you finish shopping, if they had a custom parking for electric cars, that you would be recharged.
Oh, heck, getting your shots on the way in the door and being patted down on the way out. That's your 30 minutes right there.
But the 200-mile range should open the Bolt up to many more people, right?
Yeah.
And so, because certainly I have a 7-mile commute, that would make a nice little commuter car for me. Of course, the Cadillac ELR would work fine for me because of the 40-mile range, but but we think that'll open the Bolt up a lot. Now, the other thing they've done is they've kind of maximized. I'm sorry, I was tossing my head because the dog has come and sat in my lap, and so she's sitting on the cord. I'll just unplug my cord. My headset is a wireless headset, but I leave it plugged in all the time lest the battery run down. So speaking of batteries, but so the Bolt 200-mile range. But the interesting thing is they've created the interior to be very comfortable in the front seat and the back seat. So they learned their lesson from the back seat of the ATA or the cramped quarters in the ELR. And this may be the first car that's designed for shared ride services. They're really emphasizing, so even if you were getting in the Bolt, somebody was running the Bolt as a Lyft taxi and they were picking you up. So all the seats in the back seat the Bolt has Wi-Fi access. All the seats in the back seat have individual USB plug-in spots. So you can charge your phone and text your friends while you go. All the seats are comfortable. There's no, oh no, that's the bad seat. And so this may be the start of, now this car is not autonomous, but certainly that would be, the next generation of software and add-ons and we'll see bolts running around picking people up and dropping them off, and then plugging themselves in to recharge.
I think having an autonomous car for hire is bad luck because there'd be too many people try to steal them.
You think?
I think that you
But
need to
it'll always be saying where it is. It's on a cell system, right?
I think you need to ease into that market. I think that having a few out there that are autonomous would work, but you don't want to just have a fleet go out there. You're gonna have trouble the first couple of months.
Yeah, but the danger is the competition, and I literally think shared car services are going to fundamentally revolutionize the automotive market.
Well,
That either you're selling shared cars or you're not selling cars at all. That's where I think that we're probably headed. Is last year they sold 15 million cars to individual drivers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about the majority of people aren't like you and I who are car enthusiasts, right?
Right.
The majority of people want a solution to get to work.
Yeah.
And so if you told them you can buy that by the drink, we're going to give you a deal where a Bolt will show up at your door at 8 in the morning, drop you off at work at 8:15, and show up at your work at 4 and drop you off at home at 4:15, and all you have to do is register by the month.
That's called carpooling. People do that all the time.
But this will be even better because you can order it on your phone. You don't have to be friends with people. The problem with the carpool is you have to interact.
Well, at least at the bulletin board level.
Yeah, exactly. At some level. And you have that problem where if you're not ready to go home at 3:30 or 4 or whatever time the carpool is, you're sunk, right?
That's what kills me is I just can't be told when I have to leave.
No. The other issue I had is there's sometimes when I need to drive in between buildings or in between sites, and so I can't depend on a bus or something on shared transportation. I need to be able to get to other places. Not to mention lunch. Lunch would be in a crisis lunch. If I had to eat at the company store.
In LA, the roach coach pull up outside the door and you get your tacos.
Yeah, there you go. But we don't get that where I am. So
good. Good memories.
But yeah, they had that in Sunnyvale too, where when I was out there, they would actually announce it over the loudspeaker in the building.
Oh yeah.
So and so is at this location, and so people would know to run out and get their lunch.
One place I know had a contract. They would let the contract with the individual roach coach runner.
But I do not want to. I don't want any of that. I want the freedom of going at lunch when I'm ready for my lunch and getting in my supercharged Cadillac and driving to the location of my choice and getting lunch.
Yeah.
That's what I want. But I think a lot of people will be attracted to shared car services because of the different investment that you'll pay by the month, or you pay by the week, or you pay by the ride, pay by the drink, instead of leasing a car by the month. Because all I got, especially if you need to get to work at 8 in the morning and I can sell the car from 7 to 7:30 to somebody else and 9 to 9:30 to somebody else, you could be a single taxi driver and run 5 different cars, right?
Yeah.
So I was interested on the board. One of the guys posted that he had invested in a truck and driver. So I love that idea as a small business that he's providing a job to a driver. And he had done this based on the model that his brother established, which I appreciated. It's great to have a cookbook where somebody else has kind of worked out how the business would work. But I thought that was a really interesting investment, didn't you?
I didn't really read about that.
Yeah, he had put it's in the off topic forum, I think.
Okay.
But what he'd done is he went and got a 2012 Peterbilt.
Yeah.
Semi tractor trailer. So his brother was in I think it's car delivery.
Oh yeah.
Service or car transportation service. And so what he's done is he's bought or financed the truck, and he's hired a driver to drive the truck. And then he picks up jobs and sends the driver around the truck.
Okay, that's isn't one of our forum members talking about doing something like that, or is that who you're talking about?
That's what I'm talking about. Is one of the forum members posted in the forum that he got this started.
Well, I'm sorry, I was sort of out of things for a couple of weeks, and I've only recently gotten back into him. I'd forgotten about him. Yeah.
Yes. So he actually got the truck set up and he took it for a drive.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't post pictures. So it's Jay Woods. Jay Woods from Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. He's also a tech, isn't he?
Yeah, a Mercedes-Benz tech. Mercedes-Benz master tech. So he had bought the 388 and a driver and is following along in the model, I think, that he said his brother established. But yeah, I wish him well. I think that's a fascinating. I love the idea of starting your own business. I love the idea of starting a business that provides jobs to others, right?
Yeah.
And so all that looks good, and I wish him well.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to chat about before we go to general news is the Cadillac sent me a letter about my Roadster. They said, if you need to get out of the Roadster and the battery's off, then look in between the seat and the door, and there's a little lever that you can pull up that'll let you open the door, because the doors are electric on the XLR. What they did is you reach in, the door handles are basically shaved off, as if they were shaved off, right? And you reach inside a little alcove and touch a button, and that opens the door. And so if the battery's dead, you can't open the door to get in the car. So what you do and it doesn't have a key slot. So what you do is the trunk has a key slot. So you take your key to the trunk, open the trunk, and then the trunk has a lever to open the door. And then you can get in the door to get the hood open to replace the battery. I guess
my car's that explains how my car works. You open the trunk, and then you open a panel in the trunk, and there's the battery. You charge the battery, then the car works.
Perfect.
I think that's a new one. I'll have to check the owner's manual.
So, but yeah, I don't know if this was a litigation defense that somebody.
No,
I know, but the fact that they had sent me a letter about this out of the blue. First of all, I'm glad that they knew I owned the car.
Yeah.
Hey, Cadillac, good to hear from you. But because I bought this XLR locally from a private party, so I'm glad that I suppose when I took it in for service at the dealer, then that registers it in the national database for who owns it this week. Or maybe they track through. You think they track through vehicle registrations to try and figure out where to send the letter to?
Yeah, current registrations, and then
anyway. So I was glad to hear from them about my 7-year-old Roadster. But yeah, they felt out of the blue like it was important to tell me how to get out of the car if the battery died. So now I know.
Yeah.
I also have my an XLR artifact. Every XLR owner needs a T15 star type wrench. T15. What this is used for is if your transmission lockout locks up and you can't get the transmission out of park to tow it to get the Prindle switch changed, you use the T15 star wrench to remove the handle, move the leather out of the way, and there's a star bolt there, and you use the star wrench to unbolt the bolt so you can take the handle off of the shifter so that you can get the shifter out of the way or flip the solenoid and get the car out of gear or into gear. So I have just clearly not in the car, which is a mistake because that's where this belongs. But every XLR owner needs that for emergencies. But now I'll also put my letter in my letter in the glove box so I can remember.
Well, a tow truck driver will just tie the steering wheel and lift the rear wheels.
Well, there you go.
And a lot of them will pull it up on a flatbed, and then it's all moot from there anyway. But they still will have to deal with the rear wheels off the ground. I've seen stuff like that. A good experienced tow truck driver will find a way. But it's better to have the tools to where you don't have to have,
Yep.
a star.
And I think what drivers have found is once they can get in there and flip the solenoid, they could drive the car. They didn't even have to have a tow truck. Then they could get it, unlocked, they could jiggle it and get it reset.
Well, that's the CaddyInfo DIY solution right there.
Carry your star rich XLR owners, please.
Yeah.
GM says they are not going to do over-the-air upgrades on safety systems.
That's a little risk there. I kind of think that's probably not a bad idea. The problem is you got to go into the dealers, and I have yet to find a dealer I would trust with my CTS.
But Tesla is doing that. They're doing over-the-air revisions. So do you think GM is being overly cautious here? The market's going to go that way, and they need to figure it out.
I think that the market does need to go that way, and they do need to figure it out. But I don't know the details of their decision. And for example, the software update process may not be as secure as Tesla's because they didn't foresee the risk and the problem, whereas Tesla had the examples preceding them. You follow me?
Yes.
So
now, the other issue I have is occasionally when you update the software in a car, you're going to brick the PCM. That there's going to be a glitch. There's going to be I know just from loading calibrations onto cars, for tuning, that occasionally, rarely, it's going to not load, right?
Well, yeah, but that's when you're working directly on the PCM. When you're going and you're talking straight to the PCM, just say you're in the PCM burn mode, burning the ROM on the PCM. The way it works in the car for the over-the-air stuff. Now, I'm inferring this from my experience with it when they were working with the Bluetooth. It all has to do with the main car computer, which is part of the entertainment or infotainment system, with the hard disk. And it will download the software, and then it will run checks on the software, verify the download, and then it will do an upgrade that cannot be interrupted by turning the car off. And the software doesn't switch until that process is done. It basically doubles the ROM requirements in each module because you have to have you have to be downloading in one section while the other section is not, or the process has to be so fast that just waiting to start the car, if you happen to jump on it at that minute, is not a problem. So,
well, see that's sort of
buffered situation, very much like downloading security updates on your PC.
That's what I would like to see them do, is basically a fail safe or make before break approach.
Yeah.
In other words, you double the ROM space. ROM's cheap, but you double the ROM space. You download the new system, you boot up on the new system, and then a thing comes up on your message thing that says, checking everything, and are you happy? Did it work? And if you say no, or you can't respond to the message, it goes back to the original system.
Yeah,
Video drivers work that way.
Or it goes to a default mode, which it loads the stuff from scratch.
Right.
It goes back to its birthday, or re-downloads the software from scratch.
That's what I would like to see them do, because occasionally you're going to run into weird situations where the battery power on the car is too low, or lightning strikes during the download or something. And
I don't think mine would start the download if my battery voltage wasn't above a certain level.
Well, that's what I would hope they would do.
Yes.
But I don't, what I would do on this is I would wrap it up in fail-safe planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like you say, I would have a separate module, a separate space where I could download the whole thing, switch over to the new download, test it to see if it downloaded properly, test it to see if it boots properly, test it to see if the driver's happy with it before I consider that the new one. And then I would leave the old one in place. I would ping pong them. So in other words, you have module A and module B. You start off with A and B, both have A software on them. When you update B to, A2, A still stays in place. When you need to download A3, because you've been running on module B with A2 loaded, then A3 loads into A, if you see what I mean, so that you're constantly, you always have the last version, the known working good version. Windows reminds me of this, as they'll ask, do you need to roll back to the last version?
Yeah, they have the restore points.
Yeah, I think that that's important, and that they should learn from Microsoft's pain on this topic.
If I get into real panic mode, I can still go back to Windows 7.
Yes. And so I think I would like to see Cadillac and GM be definitely make before break on this topic. And so I did. The other thing I saw in the forum, and that hopefully somebody will, somebody had posted that they were looking for a competent mechanic in New York State that they could bring their car to. And I was really wanting our friend Mike Body by Fisher to respond to that. Because I don't know if that's too far away from where he lives. What he was looking for is a mechanic who could listen to you, where you pull up the car and he could say, okay, I can tell by the sound of it what's going on. The other one that somebody posted about their that was fascinating was their car had caught fire, or occasionally it would backfire and catch fire.
It would backfire into the intake manifold. And
I thought that was interesting. I think he has fuel pressure problems.
Well, he also has a audible vacuum leak on the driver's side, which tells me where's the poppet valve on the intake manifold? The backfire release valve. I thought it was on the passenger side, but if it's on the driver's side, that's got to be it. Because if it's got carbon under it, or if you blow some carbon into it and it doesn't seat, it'll give you a huge vacuum leak, and that has been a problem for a few people in the past. So I told him to listen for that and look for it, and if he could, clean it out and put it back, and reseal it. But also, I think he may also have a problem with that big rubber shock-absorbing gasket between the throttle body and the intake manifold that may be cracked.
Well, whenever you say backfire problems on the North Star, I think fuel pressure regulator. That when the fuel pressure regulator starts to act up, then you get backfires.
That's true.
And then once you start backfiring, then that causes overpressuring the manifold and other issues.
Right.
And so, but the issue is fuel pressure regulator is a kilter or a kimbo.
Yeah. That's it most of the time to start that problem. I think a leaking fuel injector can do it, but I think those are rare. But so many people run their car on regular that stuck fuel injectors are more of a problem than they should be.
Now, stock fuel injectors I think are rare, and because the fuel injector cleaning companies like to tell you that fuel injectors are have a range of performance. And if you run their cleaner, then it drastically improves their performance. But I've found fuel injectors to be very digital. They either work or they don't. And unless you're on, real cutting edge performance discussion, then there's not going to be much benefit to cleaning a fuel injector. Now, there is some benefit if you're trying to get every last horsepower. But like on my 96, when I did tests that way, where I put brand new fuel injectors to replace the 8-year-old fuel injectors that were in there, or however, 4 years old, or 100,000 mile fuel injectors with brand new fuel injectors, and it made no difference in the measured performance.
Right.
And so 0 horsepower difference one to the other. So my conclusion was that fuel injectors are very digital. If they're spraying, then you're good. And if they stop spraying, then you need to replace them.
That's right. They may sound different. One may go click and one may go click, or clack or clunk, or nick, or, it all depends on, the cross section of the metal, and you slice it and stuff, how that the sonics works out through the acoustic body.
So I'm very excited about the CT6 coming to market, and I'm interested to see those on the showroom. I still don't think I'm a customer for the CT6, but I'm fascinated with a full size car being the same weight as a highly efficient low weight car, and seeing it in person, and so that will be interesting. Oh, they did you see the Cadillac announced their new driver uh, for the next season? Andy
No.
Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Andy Pilgrim had let us know on Facebook that Cadillac didn't pick up his contract for racing for next year. Um, and so that was interesting. But we were waiting to hear who was going to be the new Cadillac driver. And Cadillac finally announced this week who the new driver was going to be. And back in when Bob Lutz had the CTSV challenge,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and I flew out to New York, and Body by Future joined me for the day. Um, and we went to the CTSV challenge and talked to, the magazine editors and the people at Cadillac um, and so on. The way the CTSV challenge worked is they went to Monticello Motor Club and they invited anybody run what you bring whatever car you want, and we'll race it against the CTSV.
Mm-hmm.
And what some drivers discovered is, they brought their A7s or their other sports cars, and as soon as they ran it on the track a couple of laps, then it wouldn't run anymore. They boiled
Yeah.
away the brake fluid
Mm-hmm.
and they were done. But and as we were there, what they were doing is they were posting the times up as each of their test drivers ran the CTSV, and then some of the journalists were driving CTSVs, and so they were posting best times. And so, of course, the CTSVs had all the best times, but there was a modified BMW M3 that showed up.
M4.
No, at that time I thought it was an M3.
Whatever. Go ahead. I remember it's an M4, but it doesn't matter.
I don't think the M4 existed then.
Oh, okay.
That's the other reason I'm thinking. But there was a modified BMW M car, we'll
Yeah.
say.
Came on a trailer.
No, I don't know, but so this was back in 2009, and he showed up and almost ruined the day for Cadillac.
Yeah, he placed in there like 4th overall or something.
Yeah, he beat Bob Lutz's time.
Yeah.
Bob Lutz put a 2:56 on the Monticello Raceway,
Mm-hmm.
and this young man put a 2:50,
Mm-hmm.
And beat the journalist, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So and BMW was proud of the whole thing, and they invited him out to the BMW multifunction, and crowed about it and so on. Yeah, it was an M3. He brought his M3. Mm. And what Cadillac ended up doing is one of the Corvette race drivers came over and got on the track with the CTSV and set the low time for the day and saved the day for Cadillac. And so, thank goodness. But the young man who drove the M3 then went and got a ride in World Challenge, and he was racing in some of the World Challenges, the Pirelli World Challenge, where the Cadillac racing is done. Mm-hmm. And so the young man's name was Michael Cooper.
Yeah. And
he was driving for Camaro. In 2015, he was driving for Camaro. Back in 2011, he was an MX-5, driving an MX-5. And then in 2012, he won the World Champion Touring Car Championship. So that was one of the other classes in World Challenge. Mm-hmm. And then World Touring Car for a partial season in 2013, winning 4 of 9 races. And then in 2014, he ran in 2 GTS races with Miller Motorsport, including fourth at Miller Motorsports. And then in 2015, he raced for Black Dog Racing in a Chevy Camaro. And so Michael Cooper is who they have invited to drive for Cadillac next year.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's going to be Johnny O'Connell, the experienced pro, and Michael Cooper, the relatively young, and I think he's 26 or 27, but the up and comer.
Mm.
And hopefully that will make a good some good advertising for Cadillac too, because they're wanting to appeal to a younger set. So maybe they can do some commercials around Michael Cooper and give him a little more money to go.
Well, I remember Andy Pilgrim was a guy that was winning the races for Cadillac the first year or two, and then Cooper, his teammate, started winning, and he never really caught him. I don't know.
O'Connell, yeah,
O'Connell. I'm sorry.
I wondered if they ran factory instructions that way. In other words, Johnny's job, and I don't know, but Johnny's job was to run flat out, and Andy's job was to make sure they got points out of the race. So if Johnny ended up in a wreck, then Andy would still be in fourth or fifth or third. I don't know that they had driver instructions, but I often wondered, since they were in equivalent cars, and Andy's a marvelous driver, I often wondered if there was some factory instructions there about what they wanted Andy to do. If his job was...
I doubt it. All teams work that way. But they don't always go into a race with that kind of instruction on an individual basis.
And of course, they had miserable luck at the beginning of the year last year where they burned the car down and so on. But
that new car
came back and won the season at the end. So
yeah, the all new car. They really struggled the first half of the season.
But they won. The ATSV's on the track. Go, go, go.
A miracle, isn't it?
Turn up the turbo for 2016.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a little more silicon in the pistons, a little less antifreeze in the coolant, and a little more boost in the turbo, and mess with the spark map, and let's see what happens. They also ought to do something really sneaky, like spray water on the tires on hot days. But I don't know.
And of course, Michael's quote in the article on worldchallenge.com was that the ATS-V-R is the epitome of a race car. Horsepower from the twin-turbo GM LF4R engine, the downforce of the GT3 spec body, and nimble chassis make it a perfect car to drive. And I'm sure he's excited to get in with Cadillac Racing. That'll be a good match.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing is I wish I would have rather they run 3 cars again, and then had Pilgrim in one and this guy, Cooper in one and O'Connell in one. But
that wouldn't have hurt. But
there's trades, and they did some seasons.
Some makes do run more than 2 cars.
And Cadillac ran 3 cars a couple of times when they wanted to have guest drivers on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that stirs the pot when it comes to manufacturers' points.
Yes. But I guess it can take away from driver points, but
no, I don't. It's a separate tally. I mean, in terms of the number of people racing, possibly, but that's a very small thing. Really, just one more driver.
Well, but you have
other makes have had more than 2 drivers. Lots of.
You have more competition in the same car that you're in, so it makes it harder to win. I guess was my thought process.
Oh, I see. Yeah, somebody that's right in your, the top 5 or something like that.
Right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hadn't thought of it that way. I kind of think that a given course and a given day, one driver is always going to be a little bit better than another. You change any one of those factors and you're stirring the pot. But I do think that on a given day, a given car, given temperature, given course, it'll just work out that you'll have a winner by a few tenths of a second per lap.
Excellent. So I think that covers the main part of our topics, and I've kept us for 45 of our 3 minutes. I always joke that the ideal web show is 3 minutes long because that's people's attention span.
Mm.
And so we should always hit 3 minutes. We got an interesting topic on our Wednesday night Motorama live chat. So what do you feel is the most collectible contemporary Cadillac, Jim?
Most collectible contemporary would have to be the ATS-V.
So if you're putting one away in a garage, you'd get a current ATS-V to put away?
Well, it would be that of the CTS-V. Those are the two spectacular cars they have. The CTS-V isn't being raced right now, so even though it's probably a better car, they don't have a GT3 version and they're not racing it. So I would say that the ATS-V is the one that's going to be worth more in 25 years.
Now, if Cadillac's not sure what to do about the leftover Pratt & Whitney race CTS-Vs from last season, call me, okay? Well, I can pick them up. I can pick them up and dispose of them for you. I'll make garage space.
You don't have to pick them up. I'll fly over and drive them to you.
I don't think that that they have tags for the road, but because they were purpose built. Although it could be here in Texas, you could license them because they were made out of real cars, so they would have a VIN, and but you'd have to get them through inspection. So you'd have to, But after watching my Duke Roadster pass inspection, I'm optimistic I could get anything through inspection.
Well, under Texas law, as I recall, now it's been a lot of years since I looked at Texas law and was there, but if they're less than 50 made and you're not a major manufacturer, you can get tags for it, and you can sell it. But if, in other words, these Pratt & Whitney things, if Pratt & Whitney made them and they weren't made by GM, and Pratt & Whitney's not an automaker, well, then it's possible they might be able to get a dispensation, but it'd take a ruling by the Attorney General on that.
Now, this fellow is selling a 58 Cadillac Eldorado BRX commercial convertible. Oh. But I think that that's not a real convertible. I worry that that's not a real convertible. I'm going to flip over to this real quick because you may have more insight about this than I do.
Oh, I would just look on that Cadillac history page.
Yeah. Well, I think the BRX, during that period, BRX meant hardtop and
hardtop and convertible were usually on the same platform when they had a convertible.
So here's the picture. Can you see that?
Yeah, it doesn't look like
that doesn't look like a real convertible to me.
It looks like a coupe.
Yeah, that's been cut, right? The top's been chopped off.
Yeah, and that's the same body that the Pontiac and Chevrolet were built on too in '58.
It's pretty the way he's done it, but
yeah, the rear end treatments.
The way the
50s.
The way the windshield doesn't look like a convertible windshield.
No. Let me. I'm gonna switch over to my other browser window and just take me a second.
So I'll put you off screen share. But it's an interesting car though. The 58 Aldo BRX convertible, and I'll put the link for the ad in the thread for today.
Let's see. 58 Eldorado, you said?
Yes.
It did come in a convertible. I'm going to screen share. Where's the screen share? There it is.
You make fun faces when you're concentrating.
That's because my ears hurt.
Oh dear. He wants $45,000 for it. Matching numbers, he says. Clean title. So I wish him well with it. Have good header bow, top assembly, and OG 3x2 intake and carbs. Additional interior pieces, additional exterior pieces.
Why don't you switch over and let me have the screen, and I'll scroll through the...
you are on the screen now.
Okay. This is the Cadillac history pages, and there's a picture. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, so I guess the windshield on that car just looked odd, didn't it?
Yeah, it was the angle. The Eldorado had that classic rounded rear end treatment with the fins. You can see the rear on the 58 Eldorado here. All the ones they show are convertibles, although this looks like it may be all the same car. There were 3, good Lord, two-door coupe Seville, the two-door Baratz convertible, which is a model you found, and then a two-door special Eldorado coupe that they only made one. And so the convertible was their main model. Let's see. No, I'd say it's about 50-50. They sold 815 of those and 855 of the coupe Seville. The engine was the 365, rated at 355, and it ran 3 2s. That was the Eldorado engine in 58.
Yeah, that's what he's got as the Triple Deuce Rochester.
But that wasn't even an option. That was the standard engine.
Yep.
And here they show convertible with a top up. And this is must be one of the coupe Sevilles because it looks like a hard top.
Well, it did have just an odd shaped windshield to it. And so
it does look
clearly maybe this is an original car then.
Well, look, see, the windshield's the same shape as it is on the sedan. So they just didn't have that overarching windshield that came back and killed the wind noise. I guess I don't really know how it would work. Aerodynamically, it might work on the highway. I had a friend with a 58 Chevrolet Impala, which he used that bigger body that was shared with Pontiac, Buick, and Cadillac, and it was quiet on the highway. Let me turn off sharing now. I forgot. I didn't mean to.
Well, good. So interesting, and
Screen share off. No,
and it's
it says locked up now.
Well, I'll focus on me for a moment. And so I wish him well with the sale, and I'm glad that it's a Cadillac. Here's a 38 Cadillac LaSalle rat rod. That's what I need in my life.
Well, it depends on the rat rod. If it's really a rat rod, it looks like something out of a junkyard. That's camp, and it's good for fun. But I would be embarrassed to drive it in a parade.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with my XLR. I'm having a big time with that. So, any other comments, stories we need to cover tonight, Jim, before we wrap up?
No, I don't have any good stories about my car. It's been very boring the last few months. I've been so busy, I haven't really taken any trips with it, just to and from work.
And that's good news.
I suppose. I would really like to get on a road trip. We had to cancel a trip to New York for a while, but I'm hoping we'll get out in it this summer.
Well, good. And yeah, I hope you guys come through Texas and we'll go have a steak.
Well, let's talk about it. We'll see how things go in the next couple of months.
Exactly. All right. Well, it's good to see you, Jim. Again, if you want to be on the chat with us, what you do is contact me somehow, and if you know nothing about it, I can help you figure out how to get lined up to where you can chat with us. Jim, stand by. I'm going to hit stop broadcast. Okay. And then we'll have an after show for just a bit. Thank you for tuning in. CaddyInfo.com, CaddyInfo. When you go to CaddyInfo.com, you'll find the blog. You can choose a forum there off a link. And we have all kinds of information about current Cadillacs. And you can exchange information with other Cadillac owners and enthusiasts. So check in with us next Thursday for our Caddy Info chat.